All right, welcome back to another another video from the Clark and Addison Gaming Company. My name is Brian Hafferkamp. I'm the designer and creator at Clark and Addison, and in this video, I'm going to not only open the hood or open the trunk, I'm going to rip the body off. I'm going to pull the engine. We're going to unscrew some things, and you'll be able to see from start to finish how this thing is made. So I've made several tabletop sports games, and I take a similar tact for most games. Over the last 6 or 8 months, I've been layering in ChatGPT either at the very beginning or all throughout or toward the end, or sometimes all the above. So ChatGPT has been very effective in helping me think through things, to ideate different ideas that I have, and I'm like, okay, can you test this? But also, can you give me 100 results, based on this dice roll? So I can do that, and I have done that for different games, but it takes 4 seconds for the computer to do it. So, and it's going to come up with all the same things that I do, plus some that I didn't think about. So that's a really cool part about this is the ideation. I might take 75 of those and say those are good, come up with 25 more, or I just take those 75 and I'll convert them into dice rolls for, like, I want some things to happen more often than another or something like that. So for me, ChatGPT has been about efficiency. This game that I'm working on a new baseball game. It's already playable, and you can see the player cards here. These are for the batter cards, and the game is based off of some Strat, some APA, some Status Pro. There are elements of each of those games, plus there are some elements of games like Precision Baseball that are not like any of those games. So what we have is an 11 to 66 roll, just like you would see with APA. All the results are on the cards. We have this batter against left-handed pitching. If you roll an 11 to 36, if you roll 41 to 66, this is against left-handed pitching. The red is against right-handed pitching, and these are just straight-up results. We have all of their data down here. So versus right-handers, left-handers, and then total. Their name, or they're not their name, but their team name and the year are on there. And we also have these fielding positions, how they bat, range, errors, fielding, running, and if they're a catcher, like Gabriel Moreno, you'll see a catcher rating there. Otherwise, they don't have a catcher rating. I can make that cleaner and just remove that, but it provides a nice baseline here, I think, all the way across. This large number here is called the leverage number, and we can talk more about what the leverage number is in just a moment. Higher is better. It's on a scale of 1 to 6, and yeah, higher is better. For the picture cards, I wish I hadn't undone that, but for the picture cards, you can see those here. They look almost exactly the same, but you can see they have the starting pitcher, how they throw. I don't know if I'm going to keep the age on there. I'm still working on the pitcher cards, which you'll see in just a minute. But they also have a leverage number, 1 to 6, and higher is better. They also have results. These are at-bat results against left-handed and right-handed batters, also based on 11 to 66 scale. The stats here are more simple. Don't know if anybody needs pitcher splits or not, but sometimes it's enough to do batter splits, but you can let me know in the comments if you prefer pitcher splits. And then finally, the last part is the game chart. So this game is pretty simple, pretty light. It's just the player cards and this single page of game charts, because so many things come off of the cards themselves. So here, if you get let's say you get a GB, then you're going to look here in the ground ball results, right-handed batter, left-handed batter. So if it's a right-handed batter, use this column. Once you get down to 16, everything is going to be for righties and lefties. So that's kind of a slow roller. You check for an infield hit by doing a range check. So those are a little bit different. You can see this one is pulled. by a right-hander to the third baseman, pulled to the first baseman. So it's sort of built that way. Where if you were, you have, this is to the shortstop. This still needs to be changed. I still haven't changed that. I haven't worked on this game for a week. I've been on vacation. So if it's an FB or an LD here, so you can see FBs here and you can see LDs here, then those are the fly balls and line drives, and you would use this chart. Again, it's based off of right and left-handed. This whole section here is based off of range plays, so it's like a shallow fly ball or a shallow line drive that you need to figure out range. For these are just straight up can of corn kind of plays out to medium outfield spots, and then we have a foul out. And then we have a pop on the infield. There's an automatic double in the gap or a deep drive with a home run check. And then here on a 20, you get an outfield error check. Now, the way you play this game is let's see, it's Perdomo versus Zach Gallen. So Zach Gallen has a 3. And Perdomo has a 5 for their leverage. So if you play precision baseball, you're pretty familiar with something like this, but essentially you roll 2d6s. You designate one for the batter, one for the pitcher. So either different colors or different sizes, whatever you have. You'll add that d6 rating, and it's a basic, whoever is higher wins the leverage in the at-bat. And that just means that you roll 2d6s again, and then that is your 11 to 66 roll here. So if Perdomo, who would be facing a right-handed pitcher in Zach Gallen, he is batting left-handed, but he's facing a right-handed pitcher. So you would use his versus righty, and then whatever that result is, some of these are hits straight up, some are strikeouts, some are walks. And then if you have one of these, a ground ball, fly ball, or line drive, you're going to go to the appropriate chart. You'll roll a d20, which you can clearly see here. You just roll a d20. I like to roll those all together, so then you just reference the chart very quickly. And whatever the chart says, that's what you do. So if it's a hard ground single, that's resolved immediately. If it's a fielder's choice, batter's out at first, that's resolved immediately. So these down here are typically resolved pretty quickly. Some of these, like if you need to do a third baseman range check or a shortstop range check or an error check, then you need to roll the d20 again, and you'll come down here to the range or error check. Those are listed here with the range, error, and fielding. Typically, you're just looking at the range and the error. The fielding comes in on double plays, and there may be extra plays that we add in later that use a combined fielding rating. It's essentially just some sort of it's a little more complex. I'll show you in just a minute, but it's a little more complex. But we have those here. So I'm just showing you how the game works so that when we get into the back end, you'll see kind of how things have played out and how they get to the front side, sort of starting at the end and moving back to the front. Then you have a double play here. You'll add these different ratings from the player cards. So the fielder fielding rating, the pivot man's fielding rating. So I assume you're going to try to make a double play at, going to second base first and over to first. And then you have the batter's running rating, and then a D20. And then you add those together and you compare it to this D20 roll here. Excuse me. For an error check, you're checking the player's range rating here, and you're checking the player's error rating. So a 0 is better, which means you make a catch on a 1 to 19, you only make an error on a 20. For a 3-rated fielder, you make an error on a 17 to 21. So they have a greater chance of making errors. Same thing over here, 0 to 3. So for any of your fielding, for the catcher throwing, same thing, 0 is better, 3 is worse. So that's how it moves. If you wind up with a home run, a deep drive, then you need to do a home run check, which you see here. And then you go to this chart, check the player's batter rating. For Perdomo, it's a 5. So for him, he rolls a D20. If it's 1 to 15, it's a deep out. If it's a 16 to 20, it's a home run. Now, if the guy is only a 1 rated player, then he can only hit a home run on a 20. So you see it's kind of a graduated system that way as well. Each of these changes, so 1 to 18 and 1 to 17, that's a 5% difference between those. So a 5 rated player has a 25% chance, a 25% better chance than a 1 rated player of hitting a home run on that deep drive. Outfielder checks, you just do that. You roll 1d6 to find the outfielder, and then you do an error check here based off of the fielder's error rating. Double in the gap, you do a triples check. So the triples check, use the run rating of the player, and I think I went ahead and changed this to 1 to 19, and then, or 20. Did I change it? Maybe I didn't change that. Anyway, you use their run rating for Perdomo. It's a 5. That's the highest you can have. And then you roll your D20. So if it's a triples check and the guy's a 5, basically he's in there with a triple. Otherwise, you'll have to roll to see. And then this one, it's a 5% chance for a 1 speed player, which there are only a handful of those in the game. There's a 1% chance or a 5% chance he gets a triple on that. Basic base running here. That's just to show you. I mean, most people, if you've been playing games, you know these. If you're on a runner on first base on a single, you go to second to third. Runner on third scores. It's just like moving up the number of bases. Stealing, you use the player's run rating. So previously we saw Perdomo was 5, and against a 0 rated catcher, so the best catcher, he'll be safe on a 7 to 20. Now these are based off of modern numbers. This is a 2025 season, so the percentages here are quite high. I think the average is around 80%, if you can believe it, for safe. We also have some situational base running, so scoring from second on a single, safe going first to third on a single, scoring first to home on a double. Again, you look at the player's run rating, who's on base, so the player at second base, and then you roll to see if he's going to make it. So this range means that he's safe. So if it's between 6 and 20, he'll be safe. On a deep drive, you can add +2 to the D20 result. If it's a shallow ball, you'll subtract -3 from the D20 result. With 2 outs, you'll add +2 to the run value. That means this. So he goes from a 2 to a 4. And if it's hit to left center or right center, you add +1 to the roll value or the run value. So 2 to a 3, 3 to a 4, etc. I flirted with if it goes above 5, then the player is automatically safe. So I thought about that. And then finally, we have trail runners, which if you play precision baseball, we have automatic trail runner advancement. So I put that in the game too here. If the run value of the player, the trail runner, is 3+. So let's say you have a runner at second base, 1 out, and you hit a single to right center field. If the outfielder decides to make the throw home and try to get the player, and you do this roll, and the player's safe, if the runner, the batter, who is on first now, if his run rating is 3 or greater, then he will auto advance on that play. If the runner is not, if he's a 2 or a 1, then he will not automatically advance on that play. So it's just a little bit more realistic. I think an average to good runner is going to move up on a throw home like that. So just a few things. And then here, if you hit safely, let's say you have a single, right? There's nothing here that tells you the direction of the single. So you can use your D20 roll and it'll just tell you where the ball goes. Now that has some bearing here, right? So it does have some practical bearing. It also creates a little bit of storyline, right? In the narrative. Nothing particularly strange. If you have a foul out play on a 1 here, you'll roll the D20. 1 to 15 is caught for the out. 16 to 20 is a foul ball, and you just re-roll the at bat. For the pop out, which is here, pop out of the infield, you just roll a d6 to find the player. It's an automatic out, but you need to find which infielder you popped out to. So you just roll a d6, and that's how that works. And this gives you most everything you need in a game. I've played, several games so far. Maybe I'll even try to get a game in this morning. But it gives you a lot of stuff here, and you get a lot of choices, and you get a lot of there's both choices and kind of watching at the same time. So like the home run check, you're just watching that deep fly ball, and it creates a little bit of tension there. So I like that, and I know a lot of gamers like that deep drive check. So I think the game provides a lot of really cool tension within it. You can see how players do against righties and lefties, and so you can bring in players, both pitchers and hitters, based off of who's coming up. So often I'll look and see. So if you have Perdomo, Carroll, and Marte all in a row, you can see he doesn't do as good against right-handers, and he does worse against left-handers, and doesn't matter. He was hitting everything. So you got to kind of look at what you're going to do. Looking ahead, sometimes you have 3 batters in a row who struggle against lefties. Sometimes you have a mix. Sometimes you have 3 guys in a row who struggle with righties. And so it's better to bring in a right-hander at the beginning of the inning. In modern baseball, they need to go at least 3 batters. So you just kind of look at the first 3 batters, and then make your decisions after that. So you can yank a reliever after that and bring in someone else. So there's lots of different things that you can do, but it also provides just a lot of statistics, right? So you just have their totals here all the time. How many plate appearances, that's going to help you understand who the better players are. So you might have a guy like Pavin Smith here, and he only had 288 plate appearances, but he's a 5, right? So does 5 mean he was great? It just means he was really good whenever he was in there. And really what it means is, and I'll show you in just a minute when we get into the spreadsheets, I'll show you how we get to that number, and you'll have a better understanding of what that leverage number means. But you can see here, there are up to 3 positions for each player. So this is his first, second, and third position. That also gives you a little bit of understanding, especially if you're not familiar with the players or the teams, like where can I put them? Why are they putting them, all of a sudden in a one-off game? Corbin Carroll's in center field. Carroll's a right fielder, not a center fielder, but he kind of flip-flops between those 2 positions. So that's the cards. That's the game. Now, let's look into how I just even get going. Okay, so this is, you can see over here. Sorry about that. You can see over here, when I come into ChatGPT, I have the free basic account. I don't pay for ChatGPT. This is all done with the free stuff. Now, there's things that you have to do if you wind up uploading an image or something like that. Putting an attachment on there, you're going to have to kind of find workarounds for that. You can actually ask ChatGPT, like, how do I work around? I want to put attachments here. How do I work around sort of the free limitations? It'll actually tell you how to do that. But basically, they have a new section here called projects that you can see up here. And each project is kind of like a folder that you put all of your chats into. So you can see it there. So these are just like regular different chats over here. And then you take your chats and you put them all under this folder. Basically, if I was to click here, it's kind of slow. But if I was to click here, it would show you all of these chats here just on the page so that you can click into one that you see. And I think it even gives you a little bit of idea of what each one is about. So I started here with the initial mechanics and chat. Now, this one's quite long. We're just going to walk through you'll see my prompts, you'll see how we interact with each other, and how I try to extract information from ChatGPT. So this was what I started with. So I had an idea, and this is my prompt. And I just said I'm going to make a Status Pro baseball board game clone. with a little bit of a different take. So the initial roll is going to be 1 to 6 to see if it meets the pitcher threshold. This was the original idea. The batter did not have a leverage number whenever I first started. Then an 11 to 66 roll. And this will define what happens on the play. And so the results will come off the pitcher or the batter card. So super basic. It picked up, you're basically blending classic strat baseball with the faster, cleaner system. So then it goes through and it just kind of talks through the how you would set up each thing, what to think about. These are some of the design decisions you need to make. And then it starts thinking about archetypes and different things like that. So you got to, after a while, you just got to kind of see what information. ChatGPT throws a lot of stuff at you. So you got to look and see what information is going to be important to you. This was really important. So you'll see how we distributed all of these different outs into these things. So not exactly productive outs, but you'll see how that does make its way, into the game. Here are some advanced design things to think about: splits, situation modifiers like clutch. So it knows a lot actually about cards and dice. It's got a lot of information to work with off of Strat and App especially. So a lot of the suggestions that it's going to make are going to be things from those games if they have a game in that particular sport. And so it tells you a little bit about each of the slots. So if you've ever wanted to know what's the probability of hitting an 11 or a 12 or a 14 or a 41 or whatever, they're all 2.78%. So APA especially is a very easy game to understand and to make changes to. On-base baseball, because we do the lower number first, it is only 21, not 36, even though we use the 2d6 dice. So there's no 41, there's no 31, there's only 14 and 13, because we do the low number first. Now, what that does is it makes the doubles worth 2.78%, and it makes everything else worth 5.56%. So double that. And that causes big jumps between the different results on the card. Here, you get a much less of a jump between an 11 and a 12, 12, 13. So it's very, linear, I guess. Consistent maybe is a better word. So then it tells you a little bit how you can get fine control over things, that's a good thing to do. If you've played APA, you know that it's very realistic, especially when you start to learn about how to do inception type of percentage. So once you start cutting down that 2.8% to 2.8% of that 2.8%, you can start to get to some really fine numbers. So that's sort of like charts inside of charts. So you have a roll, and maybe it's a walk, and you do another roll, and maybe it's some special type of walk. If you roll another 11 or 12, then you have like a 5.78% of 2.78%, which is a very small number. So you can get to some very small numbers very quickly. Here's if you want to do a different take. You can add different things, count-based systems. So it just starts giving you some ideas about what you're doing. It gives you more encouragement. It's always encouraging you. And then there's always next steps. So I look through here and I think, okay, where do we want to start? So I just chose the create a probability tuning spreadsheet. So I'll give you a spreadsheet structure plus formulas. So what that does is it allows me to set the data first. And once I can set the data, I can set the values. And then when I set the values, I can understand more about the gameplay and how that's going to work. Now, it already knows what I want to do in terms of basic gameplay. So because it already knows those kinds of things, it's making suggestions now with the data that are going to fit with that. So if you know how you want the game to kind of be, or you can say, okay, this is the game loop I want to do. This is the number of dice I want to use. This is how I generally want an at-bat or a possession to go. Then if you have all those things already in your mind, which I do because I've been doing this for a long time, so relatively long enough. I've made a lot of games. And so I've been doing it long enough to know I want this kind of dice. I want to make sure I have this kind of percentage. I want this kind of interaction between the batter, the hitter, or between the two players, or whatever it is. So then it gives me a core model about event percentages. Here are the league targets, league-wide targets that it wants to. It tells me where it pulled those from. And then this is setting the pitcher threshold. So if a pitcher is a 5, he should win 83% of the time. Now, this changed a lot as we went through, but then we think about card slots. And when we looked at the cards, that's these slots here. We have 36, right? So each of these is a slot. So we're looking and thinking through, like, how many of those should be outs? How many should be singles, doubles, triples, based off of the percentage, right? There's 36 of them. And then if we have 8 out of 36 is how many percent, right? And what you want to do is, especially with doubles, triples, home runs, those are just things that happen. Those are events that happen, right? Different types of hits, different types of extra base hits, strikeouts. Those are a single roll, and it happens. So you want to match the real strikeout percentages. This is woefully short, but you want to try to match the K percentage, the average K percentage for the league. And we did a lot of back and forth, you'll see, about how do you do this, because the batters and the pitchers are interacting, and do you need to do what Steve Etzel calls 50-50 math, or is there a simpler way to do the interaction so that you don't have to do that necessarily? You can just kind of more easily create the leverage number, create the slots, and you don't have to inflate the player card in order to account for the pitchers, etc. And then it goes through the true outcomes. It's assuming a 50-50 on the batter and hitter. And then it breaks down like the true home run rate based off of if the batter has 4 slots and the pitcher has 1 slot. So again, it's sort of trying to eventually get to that 50-50 math. The league simulator, it's going to look at that and give you what you need to do to try to create, league average or whatever. Gives you a little advice on how to tune things if things are too high or too low. It starts bringing in ChatGPT specifically loves things like History Maker Baseball. They love these tags and categories of players as sort of subcategories for the players. So they love to tab them with these different word categories. For me, I like to keep it numbers based, but if you wanted to do more of a play style word based, it almost leads you into that, right? Because that's sort of how modern games are made. ChatGPT specifically will push you toward more Euro style design. That's what I'm noticing on every single, give me some suggestions. Everything it suggests is pushing you toward a Euro style game. So if you want to kind of push baseball or football or whatever into more of a Euro style, use ChatGPT, because it's going to push you that way. Like almost every suggestion that it gives is pushing you in that way and away from sort of the old traditional way of just numbers only. So just a little something I picked up along the way. And then, just, again, it's some encouragement. It's a core logic similar to Strat and APA, but it's telling me that it's cleaner mathematically. I don't exactly know how. It didn't talk about that. But and then I've got questions, As a designer, I've been doing this for a while. So is there a reason you're tying the pitcher control to control only? More encouragement. I know it's a pretty good question, but it's just encouraging. It doesn't have to be tied to control at all. It's just its first take, right? Every take is not authoritative with ChatGPT or any sort of generative model. It's just giving you its first thoughts. Push back on it. Why are you doing this? What's the reason that you chose this? How is that relevant? Is there a better metric to use? Your 1 to 6 gate can represent anything you want. So he's limiting, or the ChatGPT is limiting it to control as the way you get to that leverage number. That's this number here. That's what we're talking about at this point. So who has outcome authority on a plate appearance, right? So that's what we're trying to do with this 1 to 6 roll. That's what I was trying. It's like the PB number in Status Pro, if you've ever played that. So you can interpret it as any of these. It's a possession of the at-bat roll, right? We want to know who gains the leverage in this at-bat so that we know which card to look on. That's essentially what we're trying to get out of this initial 2d6 roll. And then it tells me why defaulted to control. It's historically what people have done. It's how ChatGPT understands pitchers to be doing. And then it gives me some other ratings or qualities that we could use, right? So dominance, which is based on stuff, contact, count leverage, which would be awesome, but a little bit too much, I think, for a tabletop baseball game. But could be a really great solution in a digital game if you want to create a digital game. And then also you can put in a fatigue and pressure system. So the big design question is it a skill trait? Is it based off situational advantage, fatigue, etc.? And then it brings me back and says, hey, just remember, this is your master knob that you're turning in order to affect the game. So this is really important to get right. Don't call it control, call it this. That's where we got the leverage. So you can see, like, I'm not taking everything. It's like little bits and pieces here. Okay, leverage sounds like a great, out of all these things, I feel like leverage sounds good because I can use leverage for either one. I can use it for the batter or the pitcher. Right now, we're only talking about the pitcher because that was my initial setup. There's a 1 to 6 roll. If it meets the pitcher threshold, if it's that number or less, then the pitcher gets quote unquote control the at bat. If it's greater than that number, then it goes to the batter card. Right? That was my initial thinking. I want it to be modern and dynamic. So that value should shift situationally and depending on the strength of the batter. So a star hitter should decrease the rating by 1. This is, again, still the hitter does not have a leverage rating yet. A low-level hitter should boost it by 1. And so I don't know why it's going into all this, like, it's starting to talk like a junior hire or a bro. I don't know what's going on with ChatGPT, but it started to get more bro on me. I don't know what it's doing. And so now we have a dynamic system. Then it's like, okay, you want a dynamic system? Here are some ways that you could do that dynamic system. So base pitcher rating plus the batter adjustment plus the situational adjustment. So it gives me the base. And then it says the batter tier adjustment. If they're a superstar, we would make this -1, and everything else is 0, and then a weak or a replacement hitter is a +1, right? So then it shows you how that would work. A 4 pitcher against a superstar was subtracted by 1, and then now the ace would use a 3 instead of a 4. So you would lose 16.7% more control of the at-bat, leverage in the at-bat, right? So a really good hitter against an average player is the superstar is going to affect that at bat, right? A weak hitter is going to add to an ace. So just generally how that will work. And then it goes through, and this is really important, it tells you what the average, and then how that would affect everything. So if you're going against an average pitcher who's a 3 against a superstar, the control would go from 50% for the pitcher to 33. But against a weak hitter, it would go from 50% to 67%. So that's a probability swing of 34%, say, just based on the matchup. And so I know that it is going to be right because I am thinking that way already, and it's just showing me the numbers. It's just laying it out there for me. If I see anything strange about it, I'll be like, hey, oh, that doesn't sound like anything I want to do, right? And then it, it encourages me again why it's better than other systems, because it starts to look at things that are dynamic, right, as opposed to something from a long time ago. It's telling me it feels like 2020s baseball, not 1970s. And it's not thinking about quality of baseball on the field. It's thinking about games created in the 60s and 70s. And then here, if you want more, it always kind of gives you things to push you farther. So if you want more, and then it tells you what you're building, and another warning, just to make sure that batter cards aren't too explosive, or pitcher cards aren't too compressive, like they make the numbers compress too much. So we want to design based on what we just talked about, everything we talked about. We want to kind of look at what's next, right? So what do I want to do? Do you want to simulate MLB statistical accuracy or slightly heightened dramatic feel? So not quite as accurate and more of a game. So I wanted real accuracy, and so it's going to go through and show me how to do that. So this is the average. So to hit those numbers, the effective threshold has to equal 3. 3 divided by 6 equals 50. So that means league-wide. These are your baselines, right? And then the models and how to weight the hitter adjustment outcomes. Again, is trying to get to, making sure that these batters are weighted properly, because now you're dynamic, right? It's not just some static number where 1 to 5 here, 6 to 10 here. It's not a 50-50 model. It's a weighted distribution model that you're starting to find more in modern gaming. It's not uncommon. It's how most of us who are younger designers and making games these days are thinking about the batter-pitcher interaction. And so, again, it goes through and talks about the control rates and how those things fluctuate and how they go against each other. And then it tells you why you have to have that 50-50 baseline. Again, this is the 50-50 math that Steve Etzel is always talking about. So there has to be, one is pulling down, one is pushing up from the average. And so you have to make sure that they're both just in tension enough that they pull everything right to the middle. That's what, to the average. So you want to prevent superstar inflation. When I did some of the early tests on this, batting was super inflated. So we've had to go back through and I worked through that in this. It's very long. So if you don't want to stick around or you just want to kind of, I'll try to move through this as quickly as I can. I'm trying to just do a deep dive. We still have the spreadsheet to go as well. I want you to know what it's like using ChatGPT in a way that makes your games better, as opposed to just saying, hey, just build me a tabletop baseball game. It doesn't work like that. It won't be like that. It doesn't work like that. You can create a simple score generator game, but if you want to make a real baseball game or a real basketball game or a real football game, it's like a lot of back and forth with this AI, and you get a lot of great ideas. You got to choose them, implement them. I think of myself more as an art director than I do a designer when I get to this place. And then part of this is me going back and forth between the spreadsheets and the data And eventually I start to input the data, and then I got to work on formulas. And then I'll go back and forth and just making sure that everything is what it is. And I'll start with the baseline loop. In baseball, the loop is super easy. It is pitcher, batter, fielder. And that's the basic loop. So that's one of the reasons that baseball is so easy as a tabletop game, is because the loop is just so easy. It's so easy to figure out. And the loop is a hook, and it's easy to play. It's easy to design for, and it just makes for a really nice, tidy game. Okay, so this is the final structure. Cards are going to be built assuming a 50-50 baseline, but then the players themselves are going to sort of push it up and down over 50-50. Can I just put their actual results on the player cards, or do they have to be adjusted because of the control roll? Because it wants me to go off and do like all kinds of stuff, like doing things on the fly. It can put things together very easily that, it starts to get you into areas where it's not realistic for playing on the tabletop. And then it says you can't just drop real life outcome percentages directly onto the cards. They must be adjusted because of the control roll, but the adjustment can be clean and mechanical once you understand the math. And so here we're getting into, I think, the 50-50 math, right? There are true outcomes. So if you put 5% on the real home run rate is 5%, the pitcher card home run rate is 2%, the league is 50-50. That means 50% of the time it goes to the batter, 50% of the times it goes to the pitcher. So then it talks through this 50-50 math, right? So the true home run percentage is the home run percentage times 0.5, which is what they break down here. And here we have 2 times 0.5. So if you just go 50-50, and they're based off of each other, if you don't raise this number here greater than 0.5, you'll wind up with a 3.5% home run rate. So to me, if you're going pitcher to pitcher, maybe it doesn't bother me so much, because eventually you're going to run into a pitcher with a home run rate of 8, and it's going to inflate things. But you can't guarantee that kind of stuff. So if you want real statistical accuracy, you have to do what it's saying here, which is if the league average is 50, then you need the batter to be 2 times the target true rate minus the pitcher card rate. And so that's the formula adjustment. So this is, if you listen to Steve Etzel, this is what he's talking about all the time. If you want that 5% home run rate to hit, you've got to make sure that that home run rate on his card is greater, because the pitcher is going to be dragging that down 50% of the time. It's going to be 3% less. So in order to have the 5% home run rate, pitchers they're generally going to bring things down. So you need that home run rate to be greater. That's 50-50 math, as Steve calls it. So that's where we are right now in this. And I really don't want to have a game like that. That's not my interest. So, and then it's telling you this keeps them as, this is how these implicitly work. Strat and APA, they do this sort of math because they are based off, especially Strat. It's almost straight 50-50. So they have to do that kind of math. So when you look at the player card, you're not necessarily getting a true representation of the player, because they need to make the stats work. So, because that fits the expectations of the gamer. And then it starts to give me a split responsibility model, which is a secondary. This is an option. Instead of giving hitters full responsibility for their stats, the batter contributes a deviation from the league average, and the pitcher contributes a deviation from the league average. So then, if there's a difference here, then you assign a +1 to a batter card, and the +1% is absorbed by matchup weighting. So again, it's just trying to add to the batter card in order to make sure that that math comes out correct. And then it gives me a whole, it tells you what all of these variables are, and then it gives you a nice little formula here. This is one of the most powerful things that I do with ChatGPT is I get formulas that combine complex ideas and complex rating systems, and I could put those into the spreadsheet against the stats, and it will automatically spit out ratings for each individual player. So superstars are not going to see 50% batting control overall with the dynamic system, because they'll see something like 40% of aces, 60% of weak pitchers. So you have to account for that weighted average batter control. Once you build it, the system should be extremely accurate, but you have to build it the right way. Right? So I just ask it to walk, because I'm still trying to understand at this point, like, okay, like what needs to happen whenever I get real stats. So one real MLB hitter, step by step. So it gives me his real stats from 2022. Talks about the home run event. So home run rate is home runs divided by plate appearances. Walk rate is walks divided by plate appearances. That gives you the walk percentage and home run percentage. Here are the percentage of all of his other hits. So looks like no triples. He has 0 triples, and 25% of his plate appearances ended in a strikeout. Now this is plate appearances, and this is not batting average or at bats, right? At bats, they remove walks and hit by pitches, so you're looking at plate appearance only. And then here is his singles rate, just 12.5%. League average is typically around 16% or so for most of baseball history. So you want to establish your league baseline. So these are the league numbers. Same numbers here, same events, league numbers. And then you want to solve backward for the player card. So you have the player's real rate. Then you have the league pitching card rate, which is this average. And then you have the batter control percentage, which is 50%. So the batter's real minus 50 times the pitcher league average divided by this batter control. So that should give you a home run rate for Aaron Judge that is 14.6%. So you see his real home run rate is 8.9, already extremely high. But on the card, you need to show 14.6. So this is, if you've ever wondered what in the world Steve Etzel is talking about, this is just another way of explaining it. Same thing with the walks. So 23%, and then 28%. So remember we had, what was his K percentage? His K percentage was like 25. So we need his K percentage now to be 28.2. So each of these has to increase just a little bit, right? And so that's how they do these things. So this one actually comes out to a negative. You would clamp it to 0. He would just have no chance at a triple. So then you convert this to 36 slots. So on the card, we need his home run rate to be 14.6. That means 14.6 of the card slots need to be home runs. 23% need to be walks, 28% need to be Ks, 10% need to be singles, etc. So out of 36, 10% of 36, so 10 times 0.10 is 3.6, or you round it up to 4. So you want to round these numbers so that they go up and down. And you may have to, you'll see, I do have to kind of like jostle these numbers just a little bit. So there's a little bit of hand holding that does have to go into the numbers, but it gets it pretty close. So the home run percentage needs to be 5 slots. You need to have 5 home run numbers on his card in order to make this work. So then it breaks down the 36. So his card would look like 5 slots, 8 slots, 10 slots for Ks, 4 for walks, and then you would have 8 outs that you need to just distribute in some way. And that equals 36. And then they go through and they break down why everything works. It's very close. If you do the numbers and the math, it's 8.5, very close to his 8.9. The difference is from rounding all the slots. So you get within whatever that is, 0.4%, 0.35% of his actual by doing that. So, and then you need to add the dynamic modifier for Aaron Judge, and how that's going to change things because he's a superstar, right? So then it wants to get on to the pitchers. And so I'd say, how do we build that from ERA or FIP? And then we started to get into some more difficulties. So we start with the real pitching line again, just like we did with the batter, out of 700 plate appearances. So that's total batters faced. If you don't know, total batters faced is the pitcher equivalent of plate appearances. So we have 700 for Spencer Strider. He gave up 32 home runs, so 32 divided by 700 is a 4.6% home run rate. You can see his walk and his strikeout rate is ridiculous. That's from 2023. So then you need to, again, define the averages. So we have the average, and then we have each player above or below average. That's what we're doing. We're trying to get their stats so that they reflect their above and below average. So use the same sort of weighted system here. This is the true rate. We've already blended these different things in. So for the pitcher card, you're just rearranging it to the real allowed rate to the league average. And then that gives you your formula that you use. So his real home run rate is 4.6, and then league average is 3.2. And so we need it to be 6 in order to get to his 4.6. So however many slots for home runs he needs to have on there needs to equal 6%. Same thing with, it goes through K percentages and all that kind of stuff. And then it tells me how many slots need to be there. So we need 2 home run slots in order to get to this 6%. And that actually comes up a little bit short anyway. Remember, each slot is 2.78%. So that equals 5.56% if you have 2 of them. You just do 2.78 times 2. Or you can actually do 1 divided by 36 plus, times 2. So however you want to do that, and then you round those off. But basically 2.78 divided by 2 is 5.56. And then for the 8% walk rate, you need 3 slots. So that would give you 5.56 plus 2.78, which would actually get you over 8.1. So you can see that the math is going to be within a percentage, like 1%, but it's not going to be exact. We're not using fine enough dice for that to happen. So you can make it exact if you want to, but you would need another dice roll probably. So the total so far, we have 26 slots. We have 10 remaining, and then you'll just send those to ground outs, fly outs, whatever. So then it does the calculations to see that if you plug those numbers in, the new rate against the league average, then you'll get 40.15. His real K percentage is 40.1. So you can see how this math works. And you can see how games like Strat and App are so accurate. And I don't know if people explain this to anyone, but those games are extremely accurate, even though they are 50-50 games. They're making sure that they account for the differences in the different players. And so it's helping me decide which one should we use. How do we handle balls in play? And then your pitcher cards reproduce all these different things, but they stay mathematically consistent with the 50-50 idea and system. And then you have the dynamic part again, which is the thing. And then I said, show how you're supposed to integrate BABIP explicitly And then right now it produces home runs, walks, and Ks. But how do we deal with batting average on balls in play? So BABIP. We have to isolate the balls in play. We have to apply pitcher-specific BABIP, and then convert those into hit and out slots. So this becomes part of the structure of the data that you'll see in a bit. So just understanding the structure, what is BABIP? It's 1 minus K percentage, walk percentage, plus home run percentage. Basically, everything that's not a home run, walk, or a strikeout becomes a ball in play. So using a real BABIP formula, we're going to get to what it should be in Major League Baseball. Typically, you can just say, as a blanket statement, 300 is the average batting average on balls in play. That's kind of like a rule of thumb you can use. So going back to Strider, 47% of his plate appearances become balls in play because we're adding all these and we're subtracting it from 1. So we add them all, we subtract from 1, we get 53. 1 minus 53% basically is 47%. So we assume that the real BABIP is 281. You can find that for every pitcher. So the balls in play percentage times this BABIP is going to give you the number. So 13% of all his plate appearances come from non-home run hits on contact. So then we need to convert all of those into pitcher card contact slots. So these are going to be non-hit, non-strikeout, non-home run, non-strikeout, non-walk plays, right? Ground balls, fly balls, line drives. And so here we need 7 slots. Okay. We need 3 slots for hits, and we need 7 slots because based off of we have 10 slots that we need to apportion out. And we have 10 times the real batting average on balls in play. So these would be hits to this 10 slots. And so we have 2.8 round up to 3. And then everything that's not a hit basically is an out, which will reflect on the spreadsheet. So it goes through and validates the outcome. How ERA happens within the game. And it gives an optional advanced layer using ISO. I don't know. And then more encouragement. So how do you model ground ball and fly ball pitchers explicitly? Okay, so this is a key part for me, right? I'm building some realism to the game. I'm layering in statistics, and what kind of statistics can I layer into the game to bring even more realism to the game? So now you're not just getting outs, and you're not just willy-nilly assigning the same ground ball percentage to everyone. Now each individual player is going to be assigned ground ball and fly ball proficiency. So now, that is moving into elite simulation territory because this is not something, maybe they can do it now, maybe they do it. I don't know. I don't know if anybody actually looks at ground ball and fly ball rates and line drive rates and puts that in. I put it into precision baseball. There may be others that are doing that. I don't know. Maybe Clay does it with the season ticket. So I like to have this on the pitcher card for precision baseball. You actually have all of those percentages listed on the card. So you can see ground ball, fly ball, line drive rates by splits against right-handed and left-handed for each of the pitchers. So, and each of the batters, I think it has those rates as well. So I try to expose that data so that you can actually manage and bring in a ground ball pitcher when you need a double play. So that, to me, that feels like super duper realistic. And that's the kind of data that I would want to have. Not just does he get lefties out. Does he get them out in a way that's not going to cost me a run? If he gives up a deep fly ball to Barry Bonds, when I could bring in a guy who's going to induce a hard ground ball to first, I want to know that data. So that's why I use that personally. And I don't know if other game systems do that or not. So we need to split contact into ground balls and fly balls, give them different hit profiles, different run values, and then let ballparks interact with fly balls. So it's saying that's how modern MLB analysis works, and that is true. That's the kind of data they have, in the dugout. So it goes through a bunch of stuff here. We need to split balls in play into ground balls and fly balls, and we do that. It's giving me some generalizations here, and then we need to translate that to the cards. So if ground ball percentage equals 60% of balls in play, then we have 10 slots for ground balls, and we have 60% of those are going to go to ground balls. So we have balls in play. There are 10. 60% are going to go to ground balls, so 6 out of 10. And then 4 are going to go to fly balls. So now we have different outcomes. And then we're going to assign different hit probabilities here on batting average on balls in play. You can see that if it's a line drive, it should be a hit more often than not. I didn't go that deep into this game, but it does. There are some things for that. And then it tells me what happens on most of these different plays. So you get a ground ball pitcher, 6 ground balls, 4 fly balls. On the ground ball slots, we're going to have 2 singles because that's what it's explaining up here. The ground balls allow more singles, rarely doubles, and more double plays. And then we're going to have 4 ground outs. And then some of those are going to be double play eligible. If it's a fly ball pitcher, you have 1 double, or the fly ball pitcher will have 1 double. The fly ball slots will have 1 double and 3 fly outs. So on 3 of these plays, so the 1 double and the 2 singles, it's a fly ball or a ground ball, but it's not exactly an out. So there are 3 hits, mostly singles. So it's going to suppress the slugging a little bit. Now, if you have a fly ball pitcher, you have the same 10 contact slots. They're going to get 4 ground balls and 6 fly balls. So 40%, 60%. We basically just split that, or flip that split. So now you have 1 single that gets through on a ground ball and 3 ground outs. You get 2 doubles because they're saying that's what the fly balls will turn into, and then you get 4 fly outs. So you still get 3 contact hits based off of that. But for a fly ball pitcher, they're going to give up a higher slugging percentage. So that's how you would sort of model fly balls and ground balls. And then it gives you the double plays, and, ballpark interaction, all that kind of stuff. So average run value on a ground ball single, 0.47 runs, a double, 0.75 runs, a home run, 1.4 runs. So 2 pitchers allowing the same hit count can have very different ERAs based on their hit types. That's why splitting ground balls and fly balls matter, because that bringing in a fly ball pitcher means you could possibly give up more home runs, right? Bringing in a ground ball pitcher means you're going to get more double plays, but they're also going to give up more base hits. That's just sort of, if you look at the data and in analytics, that's what people see. So, so then we want to do batting balls in play percentage times ground ball percentage, and then times fly ball percentage, and then calculate the hit rate. And then I don't know if it gives me an actual formula or not. It'll give me a formula farther down here. Can I integrate platoon splits? Okay, now I'm taking it a bit farther by saying, can I put in lefty and righty ground ball, fly ball modeling? So as we look at platoon splits for ground balls and fly balls, it gives me a little bit of why this matters. And then it starts to gather some splits data. It's just taking a guess, right? You can use MLB data. It's telling me that it's basically guessing at this point, but it's giving me an idea, of what those rates will be. So you can see those different ones against each. They're not completely and totally different, but they are different somewhat. Okay, now we need to compute the contact slots by their splits. So after the home runs, walks, and Ks are assigned, we need to compute the remaining contact slots. Remember, they were talking about 10. Okay, so we have that 10 down here. 10 makes it nice and easy. You can do the math in your head. So we need to do 36 minus all these. That's how we get to this 10. That's how we get our contact slots. Then we need to say the ground ball percentage versus left-handed batters, and it's pulling data from right here. It's pulling this data. And so it's just putting this in there and showing this is how you would calculate it. So you say ground ball percentage times 10 slots. So out of the 10 contact slots, how many need to be ground balls? If it's 55%, then you need 6 slots because you would round this 0.55 up, right? So 0.55 goes to 6, 0.35 goes to 4. And so if the ground ball percentage is 55, the fly ball percentage is 35, you would round that up to 6 and 4. And you can see against a right-handed batter, this pitcher would have 5 slots for ground balls, 4 slots for fly balls, and 1 slot for line drives. I don't know why I didn't put line drives on here for the lefties because it has it up there, but basically this is kind of the model you would follow for the 3 different types. So then you need to assign hit probabilities. Are they going to become singles or ground outs, flyouts, or doubles, or optional line drive to an automatic hit? Because the line drive hit per average, the batting average is 650. So on line drives, you want to hit line drives. And so then you're integrating the control, optional dynamics here for the baseball field. So if you want, I can create a fully worked example pitcher card. Yes, please do that. So then it creates a pitcher card. And this is basically what I'm going to start using for creating the formulas in the game, right? So we have all this data that is talked about before. This is going to be Spencer Strider 2023. So it's actually pulling real data. And we're going to assign those slots. It goes through it, assigns all the slots. And so we're going to have the contact slots by platoon. Again, it's just using generic numbers at this point. I pulled real numbers, but did the same thing. So not sure why it didn't do 1 here. I would have done 1 there at 10%, but it didn't do that. But basically, we have 3 slots. Against righties, we have 3 slots, 2 slots, and 0. And then we need to assign hits using batting average on balls in play. So we have the ground balls here, 3 slots. So out of those 3 slots, how many need to be hits and how many need to be ground outs? That's basically what we want to know. So we use his batting average on balls in play. We multiply that by 3. That gives us 0.84 hits, and so we have 1 single, and then the rest are going to be ground outs. And we do the same thing here with fly balls. 2 fly balls times his batting average on balls in play gives us 0.56, which is 1. So then we have 1 fly out and no extra base hits. So depending on how you want to do that, do you want to round that up? Yes, no, I don't know. He's got 1 fly out and no extra base hits for those 2 slots. So I don't know how it comes out with that, but that's not how it's just showing me what the actual math is, right? So then it's saying, here's how you assemble all the cards. So this is all the slots, 36 slots, with all of the walks, home runs, ground ball hits, ground ball outs, fly ball outs. So it just assigned 2 fly ball outs to that, even though technically, if you round up, there was a 1. You could split that into 1 fly ball hit and 1 fly ball out and still be probably pretty close. And then against righties, you have a very similar thing. So then this is going to help you decide how to put these results on the cards. It'll tell you need 21 slots that say strikeout, right? So you need 21 of these against right-handed batters or left-handed batters, whatever it is. So that was super helpful. That got me really far along in the game. And it's just telling me how to double check the math. And then it says what? Create a spreadsheet ready template that you can just plug in the numbers, and then it'll automatically output a 36 slot pitcher for both platoons. I said, yes, do that. And then it tells me all of these things over here. How to compute things. It's using Excel. Sometimes I correct it and tell it I'm using Google Sheets. So it tells me about the batting average or the balls in play percentage, so you can go through and figure that out. This is the formula that you would use in order to compute the contact slots for home runs, walks, and strikeouts. And then these are the formulas straight out that you can just put right into the spreadsheet, and you can create the contact slots by platoon. And then you're assigning the ground ball hits and outs based off of this, again, you're using this formula. And then you assemble the splits, and then control. This ensures blended probabilities match MLB stats. Again, what you're going to see in the spreadsheet is I've changed how that pitcher hitter interaction works. So I don't want to get too much into the weeds with that, but I'm looking up this formula in another sheet. If it doesn't see the difference, it throws in NA, right? How do I get rid of this NA? I give it an example of what I'm looking at, and then it says, okay, here's where you messed up, or this is what we need to do. And then it gives me a corrected formula. This happens a lot throughout this. It's not happening because the pitcher didn't throw against that type of batter. Can I just put a default? 300. Yes, you should give them a default. 300 batting average on balls in play. It gives me the whole formula again, including the default at the end. So if it doesn't find Q3 in pitcher data versus right-handed hitters in this whatever, then it gives it a 300. So if the pitcher did not throw against a left-handed batter, then it puts a 300 in there as a sort of default. That way, every pitcher can be used against every batter, right? We don't have any blanks. So even if they didn't face lefties or righties, they can still have relatively normalized percentages against those. So you may not like that. Sometimes you have to make decisions to make the game playable, and that's an area where you just got to make it playable. So if you want more realism, you can weight it slightly toward the pitcher's overall BABIP instead of league average. So if you don't want it to just be 300, that's what I'm saying, you could weight it overall to the pitcher's overall batting average on balls in play. So that's one way to do that. So what's a good general default for ground balls versus right-handed pitchers? That's a question I have, because I need defaults for ground ball percentage, fly ball percentage, etc. if they did not face that kind of batter, right? If they only came in, they had four appearances, and they faced, 6 batters, and they were all left-handed. They didn't face a righty, so I need some defaults for that. So it gives me some recommended defaults against righties. It's already given me those same ones. And then how do you implement that? You just put that 0.45 at the end like that, and it's okay. So if whatever, and you look this up and it's not there, then provide this at the end. So these are my 36 slots. How to assign the different plays? Should they be grouped a certain way? Should they be mixed up? Is there a mathematical reason for doing one or the other? Now, I've heard this from lots of different gamers who, if you play on-base baseball, they're somewhat mixed up. but certain results are going to happen all the time. So 16 is always going to be something, a 25, a 23. Trying to think if there's another one. Those specifically are going to be the same plays almost for every player. Actually, I think for every player, those are actually going to be the ones. So there's a ground out with an error check, there's a fly out with an error check, and then there's a 16 as like a deep fly ball. So it's a fly ball that all the runners advance. So I have some of those, but it's also kind of mixed up too for the different levels of batters. And then on a pitcher card, typically an 11 or 66 is going to be a strikeout. So you have some of those kinds of things. And I know if you go to play APA games, people know, if I hit this, this is what the result's going to be. So do I want to do that, or do I want to mix it up? Which some people say when they game, they like to mix it up, as opposed to, and what I mean by mix it up is it's not all fly balls and then all ground balls, so that all ground balls are going to be 11 to 16 or whatever. So they're all mixed up. Everybody's different. Everybody's based off of their own stuff. But you can see here, 111 against righties is a fly ball. One is a double. One's a strikeout. This guy down here is a line drive and a ground ball and a walk. So they're all mixed up. And I just wanted to know, is there a mathematical reason why you would mix them up? Or is it better to have them in a quote-unquote order? So now we're into the art and math of the layout. How you design it does affect the feel of the game, but it's not going to affect the percentages of the game. Every slot is worth 2.78%. Okay, so mathematically, it doesn't matter where the slots are. That's what it's saying. But layout matters. So how you put those things in matters from a gaming standpoint. It gives me pros and cons of either one. And minor clustering can create some probability, especially just because you have so few rolls, that you're doing. So there could be some clustering just because you're not rolling 10,000 rolls for every card, kind of thing. So it's telling me what a mixed layout approach might appear to look like. And then, so it's just answering my question, right? So do you want me to show a mixed layout? How can I take this and programmatically assign these slots to a card with 11 to 66 cells? Okay, so this is me trying to automate my spreadsheets, right? So start with the counts, and we have all the counts here. Automatically distribute those across the 36 die cells like this. And then eventually I'm going to... I guess this got cut off, so I just did something different. I don't know where I picked up there. I'm giving it the numbers. This is the, what is that? Is that pitching stats? I can't tell. Versus right-handed hitters. Yeah. So that was probably this, somewhere, this table here. No, pitcher data combined. It's probably somewhere around here. So I've got all this data here out versus righties and lefties. So I'm pulling all that data in and I'm posting like 3 or 4 or 5 rows here. And just here's a sample of the data that I have. So here's the slots that you have. You want to programmatically map those into an 11 to 66 grid. And then it starts going through this whole thing where this was a little bit of trial and error. How we got through this together, and I don't know how much of this I'll necessarily show you, just mostly because it's boring. But it goes through and it starts to give me some things that I need to do, and basically I need it to spit out something like this. Okay, so I need each card, so each row is a player. I need each card to have an 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, etc. This is the top one here is, it doesn't say it here, but it should be against right-handed batters. And then we see against left-handed batters, the 11 to 66 starts there, right? And I need this to be like this in a row with the player so that I can automatically put it onto the picture card. Now, my picture cards look terrible, but I need to be able to automatically bring these things in because they should be in a cell by themselves. Okay, so that needs to be programmatic. So that's what I'm asking it to do. And then it matches them to the grid. Handling righties and lefties, blah, blah, blah. Can you create a formula? Of course. So here's how it would create a formula. And then it tells me what each of the things does. So you learn a little bit. I know it feels like maybe you're cheating or something, but you are actually learning how each of these different things does, and it's trying to teach you what it's doing. And then it gives me like 2 columns, right? I need one column to do one thing, and then I need another column to do something else. And so it's telling me how to do this, and basically it creates a column, which is not what I want to do. I want to create a row. And then here, optionally, you can lock the card, because it's going, every time that it saves or refreshes, it's going to reshuffle all the results. And so that doesn't really matter to me until I go to make the card. So I just kind of, it's whatever. Once I have all the formulas and everything ready, then it'll shuffle it once, and then I can just copy and paste them where you paste the values only. So it's like on a PC, it's Control-Shift-V, right? So you're pasting as plain text. You're not pasting the values anymore, because if you place the values, it's going to rearrange every single time. And when you're trying to create cards, you have to lock in those results at some point, because otherwise, every time you go to save that file, it's going to reshuffle your card results, and everybody's going to have something different, which is chaos. I think most people wouldn't know, and it might be kind of cool, but that's probably not what most people are thinking. So then I'm like, okay, we need to take this slower. So each row is a player, and I need to automate the outputs from these calculations. Okay, so I'm being clearer about it. Sometimes it just does all this stuff and it goes through all this hullabaloo, and you're like, that's not what I'm talking about. And so you got to just be clearer with it, explicit about what you want to do. I want it to do this. I want it to look like this. Sometimes you guys break it down a little bit for it to understand. So we're going to build the helper column, and then we're going to assign it to these columns. And then, again, the preventing the shuffling. The sheet is telling me that sort by is unknown because I'm using sheets. And so this is one of those instances where Excel uses sort by, Sheets uses sort, and so it just has to kind of work those things out for you. This is the error directly from Google Sheets. This is how I handle errors. So if I get an error directly here in the sheet, I simply click on the thing. I don't have any errors on the sheet right now, I don't think. So there's nothing to error. But basically, when you click on there, it'll give you a little pop-up here. I just copy that text, I paste it straight in, and then it starts to try to figure out what's going on. So then it goes through, and this is where it just like takes forever. Because I don't know. It just takes a lot of back and forth of, hey, I'm still getting errors. Here's an error. Still getting errors, blah, blah, blah. Until the point where I just get to, this is funny because I'm going back through my conversation, but let's start over. Okay, so I need to take this data to the left, and I need to fill in the appropriate play type into the 11 to 66 columns to the right. Okay, so we're wiping the slate clean. We're starting over. No helper columns, no whatever. So it gives me this, we're just trying to start over, right, and do everything. So I'm using Google Sheets. Again, it has to do some new things because it's not working. I get another error. We're trying to fix the errors. And okay, the row he's putting in, or the AI is putting in W2. It should be W3 because we're starting at row 3, so it has to go back through and add the appropriate one. You don't think that's a big deal until you go through and you've got to, like, every time you paste this in, it's the wrong number. You should have it just say, okay, I'll rebuild it with the correct row where you're starting. Get another error. And then it works here, but it's equaling 35, not 36. So it's going to help me to fix the slot totals. If I count these, it gives me reliable 36 slots. We're trying to split contact hits and outs, which is assigning die slots. You need total contact slots. So it's telling me kind of the simple way to do these different things. Get another error. Another error. And then we go to a helper column, and the helper column produces this. So the helper column is doing the right thing, and we need to shuffle it and fill in the columns. So then it gives me this transpose, means it takes a vertical list and makes it horizontal, and then it sorts everything. And then we need to lock the card. And then I have light difficulties here. How do I count text in a cell before a blank space? So how would I count these? And then it has to give me, a little bit of, it has to make each of those a string. And so we start working through that problem. So, and it tells me now this is going to be converted to 3 home runs, 3 Ks, 2 walks. So that works perfectly. I want to get the total unique combos so that home runs, so that everything equals a total. Okay, so this is me here trying to get this results count. So what we've been working on so far, I've got all the player stats here. So this, from here to here, those are stats that I'll get off of the leaderboard here at Fangraphs. So I can actually go to, if you go to leaders, and then you can choose the year. If you just choose the most recent year, then you can actually come in here and you can choose, whatever year you want. You can choose individual teams or all teams. I typically go with batting, pitching, fielding for individual players. And then I want to split the teams. Because if you don't do that, let's see if it gives me a few here. It doesn't give me on here, but it'll say like 2 teams or something like that. I don't want that. I want the stats for each individual team. So if a player played for 2 or 3 teams, I want it to say his team and how many games and plate appearances, stuff like that the player played. We're not doing splits right now, but we do a qualification for this game. I did 5 plate appearances, and you can see it gives me 721 results. So that's pretty good. And then when I need to get specific stats, you can just do custom reports. Now, I'm not signed in. I do have an account with Fangraphs. I pay the $10 a month or whatever it is. And what that does is it gives me, I can load and save reports. That's a member-only feature. But if I create a report through this custom reports, so I can get rid of everything and just come over to the dashboard and just say, these are the things I want. Now create a custom table, and it does that, right? So it takes all of this season data and everything like that, whatever my minimum playing time, and then it just gives me those things. And then whenever I download, data export is for members only too. So if I click on data export, it gives me a CSV of this table, and then I can import that data straight into here. So that's sort of how I get my main data. Now, some of these things, like these things here, will need to be moved here because these are formulas. This is where I start my formulas. So this will be where the data is input. Oh, you know what? This is not it. This is I had pitching stats where I just dumped data, and then I had the left and right-handed stats. So this is the pitcher data against right-handed hitters. So we get the BABIP, we get the ground ball percentage and fly ball percentage. It's connected to the player. We get the pitcher data, and you can do that here by going to splits. So you can say versus left-handed pitching, which I guess we should do pitching because that's the one, against left-handed hitters. And then we have all of our settings here, our data here against left-handed pitchers, or left-handed hitters. And then you can do versus right-handed hitters, and you can download the same data export for all of that. So I go through and, I add on the custom reports, I go to, is it advanced? So that gives you your Ks and your walks. The batted ball gives you ground ball, fly ball, and line drive percentage. And then you would add those over there, and that's how you're going to get these stats here. So the ground balls against each batter. So this is splits. And so we have right and left-handed. We have both of those. We have our sort of baseline pitching stats. This is overall. For the pitchers, I did an overall. This pitcher data is no longer. In order to get these fan graphs, I wish they would provide in their custom reports, but they don't have. They have name, team, season, and age, but they don't have handedness, which I wish they had that on there, because then I could just basically use that for everything. But I do have to come over to the MLB page, and whenever I do something like pitching, let's say standard pitching, if you go down to all the players you see here, they have the asterisks. If they're left-handed, they have an asterisk. So Garrett Crochet, he's a lefty. Christopher Sanchez is a lefty. So basically, I just need a helper sheet here that lists out all the players. I do a formula here that says if this has a star, then make it a left, and if otherwise, make it right. And then once I have that all for all the players, I just copy and paste this as values and not as formulas. So that's why there's no formula there. You have to do that in order for you to be able to bring it into somewhere else, or I've had to do that. So then we have a combined data spreadsheet, and that's what this brings together all of these sheets here of data into one spreadsheet. So I'm actually just pulling this in from the pitcher hand, which is this sheet here. So I'm looking at I believe I'm looking at the player, I'm looking at player name. So I'm looking at the player name. I'm going to pitcher hand, looking at the player name, and then I'm bringing in the pitcher handedness based off of that. So you want to find this guy in this sheet and bring in that data. And that's how the XLOOKUP works. So I use XLOOKUP and VLOOKUP a lot, and that's a great formula to learn, because you can put data in other sheets and bring it into this sort of combined sheet. And what this combined sheet does is gives me one sheet that I can pull all the data into the cards. So that's super helpful. So I can do all my calculations or anything I need to do over here. I can quickly just go through and dump this data without having to do anything to process it. I do all my processing here, and then I do all my cards in a separate sheet. So we have all of our data here. We're pulling in. You can see here we're going, this time we're looking at the player ID, because as long as I have Fangraphs data, I can find this player ID, which I find to be more helpful because the names can sometimes get a little wonky. So I look at the player ID. I go to pitcher data versus right-handed hitting, and then I pull in whatever is in C. C is the batting average on balls in play. And so I'm bringing in right-handed batting average on balls in play, and that's everybody here. And if they did not face a right-handed batter, they get a 300. Remember, we saw that before in ChatGPT. So I do that for ground balls, fly balls, line drives. That's all this data here. and I match the player ID with the player ID that's right here on my combined sheet. Do the same thing for left-handed BABIP, ground ball, fly ball, and line drive percentages. I believe I am actually calculating home run percentage, K, and walk percentage, just simply using the data over here. And then I am figuring the balls in play percentage. Remember we talked through this in ChatGPT. So now you're seeing the realization of what was happening in ChatGPT. So as I'm going through there, I'm adding to this sheet and just creating each of the different parts of it. So I actually do the balls in play percentage for each player. It's 1 minus the sum of these three, right? That's what ChatGPT said you should do for balls in play percentage. And then they had some normalization here that we got to later in ChatGPT in that conversation to normalize each of these. So these are all normalized to you can recognize these percentages, 45% ground ball percentage, 30% fly ball, 25% line drives. So it normalizes all of these players on a MLB scale. And then this one does something else. I can't remember what this one does. But basically it comes off of this average here. And then I don't remember what the 200 was, but it was something. It was to make sure that players with low batters faced don't all of a sudden get like high leverages. So we were doing some weighting to, and I do this with stolen bases too. So if there's a low number, you want to kind of weed those guys out. So a guy who only stole 4 times and they were successful 4 times, is he a great base stealer? Probably not. He only stole 4 times out of 600 plate appearances. But he was successful when he went, so he should be credited with that. But he shouldn't make it every single time because he's not a great base stealer. A guy who goes 39 for 41, he's a great base stealer. So you want to make sure that you're sort of weighting those things out. And that's one, there are different ways to do that. So then we have this, what percentage does this player rank against the average? So he's in the top 55%, top 60%, top 12, or the bottom 12%. So we want to make sure that we create correct leverages for everyone based on their actual strength. And we are trying to look at their stats and get their strength. And then over here, we have our actual leverage number. And then these are, this is what we're using in order to get this leverage number. So AH is this number here against the average. And we're trying to get that leverage number. How do they control the at-bat? Here we start to do what I was just talking about in the ChatGPT. How do we assign the slots, right? So you can see how many slots for this player should be assigned. Who is that player? That player is Zach Gallen. So this number 1 row. So he needs to assign 1 slot for home runs. You can see some have 0 because they don't give up many home runs. Some give up 2. This guy has 4. Who is that? Tommy Henry. Tommy Henry, not a great pitcher. And so he actually has 4 out of 16 of his slots are for home runs. So Tommy Henry is not going to be successful. His home run percentage against is 11.5. So that tells you all that you need to know. League average is 3.5. So you take your home run slots. This uses the exact calculation that they talked about. So AB3 is the home run percentage here. And we're going to divide that by 2.78% or 0.0278, which is a 1 divided by 36 slot, right? That's 1 divided by 36. So 1 slot equals 2.78%. So how many slots do we need for that to reach that home run percentage? And so for most of these guys, it's 1. And then we do the same thing with strikeouts. We do the same thing with walks. And then remember, to get our contact slots, we do 36. That's how many total slots there are on the card for the plays. That's these slots here. There are 36, 11 to 66. And then, so we say 36 minus these 3. So everything that's not a home run, strikeout, or walk becomes a contact slot. So each of these have different ones. Who is this? He only has 17. That's Justin Martinez. So he just didn't give up a lot of contact, but he did have a lot of strikeouts and apparently a lot of walks. So that's kind of what you're going to get. And you can read these players and you can see, man, this guy really was not great at giving up home runs, or not great at preventing home runs, or whatever. You can see that from how many slots are taken up on the card itself. And so then we need to break down versus, remember we did our splits, right? We did ground balls, fly balls, and line drives against righties and lefties. So that's where we do that here. So this is right-handers and against left-handers. And out of these 24, how many need to be ground balls, fly balls, or line drives? So you can see he's a ground ball pitcher here. This guy here is more of a fly ball pitcher. Who's that? Merrill Kelly, Eduardo Rodriguez. So you can actually see some of these guys are pretty balanced. If they give up a lot of line drives, then that means that's not very good. So Nabil Krismet or Nabel, he's giving up a large amount of contact. So not many Ks, not many walks, not many home runs, but he's giving up contact in other ways. So he's pitching more to contact against right-handers. Against lefties, it's a little bit different. He's got a lot of ground balls and fly balls and not as many line drives. So spreads it out a little bit more against lefties. Maybe he's a left-handed pitcher. He is right-handed. So, so we figure those out against righties and lefties. Basically, Zach Gallen is the same against righters and lefties. And then, remember we talked about separating out ground ball hits and ground ball outs using the batting average on balls in play. So for a right-handed batter, out of these 11 ground ball slots, how many of those need to be hits and how many of those need to be outs based off of his batting average on balls in play, which we have separated out by splits, right? So we can use that BABIP number. Basically, we just say the BABIP number times this is going to give us how many slots we need. So that'll give us a percentage that we can round up. If there's nothing there, we'll just have a 0. And then that gives us how many hits. And then for how many outs, we just say whatever this number is subtracted from this number. So whatever is not a hit is going to become a ground ball out. So super easy. Right? It's just sort of binary. You do that with left-handed batters. So this is his ground ball outs and hits against righties and lefties. This is his fly ball mixture, hit mix, contact mix against righties and lefties, basically the same all the way across. And then we have his line drives against righties and lefties, basically the same thing, right? So he gives up 1 hit and 3 line drives are going to be outs. So we do that for everybody. And then we have this, which takes all of this data here and it converts it into all of the results that we're going to put on the cards. So if AJ3, if the home run slots however many home run slots there are, we need to assign HR. So you can see there's one home run slot, so we assign HR. However many strikeout slots there are, we're going to assign K. However many walk slots there are, we're going to assign the word walk. And we go through. And that takes into account all of these different things. So if it's a line drive hit, we're going to call that a double. So you can see here. If it's a line drive hit, we're going to call that a double. If it's a right-handed batter, if it's a fly ball hit, we're going to call that a single. So that's like a little bloop single or dumps it down the line or something like that. And if it's a ground ball hit, then we're also going to call that a single. So we have 2 singles for every double, right? And then if it's not, if it's an out, then we're just going to call it FB. Okay, so there is a chance for a hit on those plays, but we just basically want to assign a letter or a grouping or a play outcome to those slots. So however many slots there are. So then we look here, and if you stretch this out, you can see that's the player's stuff. So you can see all of these are listed here. That's I don't like to have that because I don't necessarily need to see it. And then this counts all of these. So it goes through, and I told you before, that was like what I was doing here. I'm trying to see and count how many there are because I want to know that this equals 36. If it doesn't, it'll start pushing things. Won't give me enough, or it'll give me too many over here. So I need this to be 36. If it's not, I actually have some formatting here that will turn it yellow. So if it doesn't equal 36, it turns it yellow. And then if it equals 36, it gets rid of that. So I can go through quickly, and I can see where it doesn't equal 36. And when I was in ChatGPT, I was like, well, how do I align that to 36? And so it was telling me start with ground ball outs first. Like I have these split into right-handed and left-handed. So you would start with ground ball outs, and you would add, if it needs more, you add more ground ball outs. If it needs less, subtract the ground ball outs. And then usually it's like 1 or 2 off. Sometimes it's 3 or 4 off. And then I just make those adjustments here by hand, and then get everything to 36. That's how we want to do it. So this is for righties and lefties. Now, okay, so this is where I'm talking about that. I'm getting a lot of totals less than 36. How can I ensure that they're less than 36? It tried to give me a programmatic way to do it, which just wasn't super helpful. So I had to, again, okay, this is what I'm talking about. And then, oh, okay, I see. And then I'm going through asking questions. I get errors. And ground ball hit equals a single, or fly ball hit equals a double. We tried that, and then in our testing, it was too much. It was too many doubles. The what do you call it? The slugging percentage was just out of this world. Okay. So then I need to do the shuffling of the cards, right? So did I ask that? Here are a couple of the pictures. I see the structure of the data now. And then this is how you fill the cards, and this is what you would do to fill the columns 11 to 66. The formula I'm using is more like this. It's a little bit more complex, but basically I'm just splitting those results, and then I need to shuffle those results. So it gives me a way to do that. I think I'm using something more akin to this, which I'll show you in a minute. Here I settle on leverage value. Okay, so that gets us through creating these. And what I did was, this is the formula that I use. So we're transposing, we're sorting, we're splitting. And and then using a random array to randomize all those things. I know that's not very elegant talking about that, but basically I can put that formula right here. I can drag it down or copy it down, and it does it for every single player. So it takes all of these. It first creates a column that's randomized, and then it transposes that so it makes it horizontal. And then basically it just fills all this out. It takes all of those slots and it goes 11 to 66 and fills them out. And then I do it again right here for the left-handed against left-handed batters, and it does it for all those. And when I'm finished, I essentially I copy all of these lefties and righties. So you start here and you go all the way down to the bottom right of the sheet, copy them, and then you would paste the values only. So you don't want the formulas, you just want the values, so that when you're here, it's always going to be, a 36 for him or 11 for him is always going to be a ground ball. So the card is essentially made at that point. And I just want to make sure that all those are static so they don't keep changing, because if you just leave the formulas here, you'll have everything out here, but it'll flip every time there's a save. So I want to lock those in. That way, when it goes to the picture card, these don't change all over the place. They just stay locked in. So that's how to do the picture cards. We start going with leverage value. We start thinking about rate-based leverage and creating the formula that I have now based off of K percentage, walk percentage, home run percentage. So it's really a 3 outcomes type of situation for pitchers. What stats should I take into account? And so it goes through, all the different things. What shouldn't be included? Don't think about these things. This is the ideal leverage structure, which K percentage, home runs, walks, and BABIP. And then the same thing here. So home runs, strikeouts, walks. So that's really, it's very much a sabermetrically determined leverage value. Strong recommendation is to use those. Don't use more than 4 variables. And so how do I design a formula that's going to account for that and then put it on a 1 to 5 scale? And so it starts to give me the reasoning behind the formula. It shows me how to weight the components. That's the part I was telling you about. Sorry. Not trying to make you throw up or anything. That's this here. We start to get into these weighting formulas here. So we have the balls in play. We have all of these percentages and balls in play. And then we have their BABIP also over there. And then we create this formula, and then we have the percent rank, and so that's sort of where we're getting there. And then we put this on a 1 to 5 leverage scale. So we multiply it by 4, and we add 1, and that puts us on a 1 to 5 scale eventually. I think there are 6s, but I'm not sure. Maybe I put the pictures on just a 1 to 5 scale. So basically it's telling me how to do that. There's a standard deviation model. I'm mostly getting 3s and 4s, which is not exactly what we wanted. And so that's why we created something against a standard deviation. And there's some weighting that goes into that. And then it said use the percentile instead of a Z-score if you want to see even more kind of stretching out 1 to 5. And so that's what I went with. I showed them a cross-section of the players. Not every player, but just a cross-section. The formula's not wrong. It's just not separating enough. And so we fiddled around with the numbers a little bit and came up with this here. Here's a sample with those calculations. I didn't paste it. I just clicked enter. So I'm using total batter's face, and I showed them. it feels wrong because your math is correct, which was also very strange to hear. But then it starts to show how we can keep low. And I talked about this before, like low sample size players from exploding on their leverage rating. And so we tried to fix that problem going through, and it was showing me how to do that. And then it gave me some options here. So how do we stabilize this formula? And that's how we get to this percent ranking. We convert it to a 1 to 5 scale, which you just saw that. That was the 1 to 5 that I'm reading. And then here's a sample, another sample of the data. So I'm letting it see, and because it can't see in my spreadsheet, so I have to show it, okay, this is what happens when I do that. So it's telling me, okay, everything is working correctly. I'm double checking it. If you want to do a final little kind of sanity check thing, you can do this or that. I didn't want to do this sort of tier-based system like this. I wanted to leave it by the numbers that we created. So yeah, you can do that. It's fine. How about pitcher details like holding runners or picking off runners? Can we have a 2 to 12 threshold system, or is it better to have a 1 to 6? And so, I'm thinking about design, and then it's walking through, okay, a 1 to 6 is going to give you these flat odds. A 2 to 12 gives you these sort of graduated odds that look more like a sideways mountain, a bell curve. So there are a lot fewer 2s than there are 7s. 7s are quite high. So I'm just thinking about pickoffs and what would be like a good system for that. I think I'll end up just leaving pickoffs out. How do you determine a pitcher's ability to hold runners? We go through all that. I'll end up just leaving that out as well and going with the simple catcher arm. Although I do have I thought I had pitcher stats for that. Maybe it's in the fielding. So I'm not sure if we haven't done the pitchers, but we do have some like stolen base stats over here as well. So we go through pickoffs. Maybe we should do that. We should just leave that off and start with the hitters, right? So what role do hitters play? Hitters should influence these things. We should mirror the pitcher leverage, basically is what they're saying. And then how do we do that? Once we figured out the pitchers, it was pretty easy to just kind of go with the batters. And so we did something very similar to what we did with the batters. In fact, if you look over, we have the same things. We have batter handedness. I had to do the same thing with the batters. We have batters, their stats against right-handed pitching, including average on-base slugging. These stats are used for the bottom of the card. So they're used for this part down here. And then we have their stats versus lefties. And then we have their batting stats overall. So I needed all three of those sets for the bottom of the card. So those are just pulling these stats in here at the bottom. And then we need some batter data. So this is akin to our pitcher data against left-handed. So then we just go to the batters and we just do the splits here. So we do versus left-handed pitching, and then, whatever our custom report is, it'll give us that splits, and we do the split teams and player stats. So that's how we get all this. It gives us our BABIP, ground balls, fly balls, line drives against right-handed pitching, left-handed pitching, and then we have a data combined here. And so here we have this, again, is going out and pulling in all of this data from batter handedness, and that's how we get our stuff here. The if then statement for this one is a little bit more complex because you have to check for the star for left-handers, and you have to check for the pound sign for switch hitters. And basically, where's it? Basically, it says if, and then we do a regex match. So this is how I tend to do it. So if this A2 is equal to, and then we have to, this is where sort of the JavaScript stuff just makes sense to me. We have to, you can't use a star and you can't use a pound sign because this will actually mean something. So you have to escape. We call this escaping, and it basically turns it into a text character. So if it is a star, then we want to make it, give it a left. And then we nest this if statement. Normally you would say there's a default here. So if this happens, do this, else put this default. But instead, if this happens, give it an L. If not, we're going to do another one. And we're going to say, if it's a pound sign, we're going to give it an S. And then we put our default. And then you have to make sure that the number of parentheses gets all the way back to the first. So it's going to give me right-handers all the time because I've gotten rid of all the symbols here. But basically, that's how you do that. So that is figuring. You do that for batters and pitchers both. And so we come over here and we input our players here. So this is just raw data that I'm getting, that I'm inputting. I think I got that from here. I just got the raw data, player, team, season, age. The teams are going to be 3 letters, so I had to go through and do a control find. So like Arizona equals Arizona